Um, it's the 20th. It's November 20th, 2022. I'm in this flag pattern. Um, I had agreed to go to the Church of Jesus Christ and Latter-day Saints today in the same area. I let Zion know it's the 24th Sunday after Pentecost that I was not going to be attending today. I made a video earlier. Lewis and Linda gave me a problem with taking my son to a different building, perhaps. I It's a problem. It's an intra-family problem, but it's an existential one. Um, that whatever on this. So my my takeaways. I was I was um they build with construction and boundaries and words, not always words that I follow. Again, it's in English. Um, but I see that there is a level of construction of this particular Jesus Christ and Latter-day Saints where there there are foundations, there are stepping stones of consciousness that are easily recognizable, for myself anyhow, which I greatly appreciate. um, I am I so I went through the sermon part of the church, um, and then what I really liked was there is the sacrament part, or the sermon part, or the service part, and then there's a break because there's this celebratory part, or like celebration part, um, that seems to be consistent in unity with the rest of the Christianity that I've experienced, whether it be Catholic, Episcopalian, Lutheran seem to be the same way. I think I've been to Presbyterian once before. Um, so they all share, in some sense, this thread of way of being and a way of conducting themselves. Um, and then there was this break, and they actually had an adult Sunday school. I mean, I think about it in my first, in whatever I was with Jason, he would have never stood for this, with having to go to an adult Sunday school. But, and it would have been very hard, difficult to engage him to go. But for me, it was, I mean, like, how could you live and not have an adult Sunday school? But they actually break it apart, and then you go to receive words, lessons, definitions, construction. And then how can I use that construction in building the outside world? And to see how pieces come together. I mean, it logically, it makes so much more sense, especially in a time of such chaos. I'm experiencing, like, I don't know, midlife crisis, I suppose. Like, my kids are all grown and they've been taken, I don't know what they're up to. I have no access to them any longer. And what do I do with myself? Um, so I thought that was interesting. And in the room and at the sermon, um, there was three. I mean, again, it wasn't. I don't even know what to call it. I mean, I said insignia because I had never seen. I mean, I've seen it in pictures on the wall or in the television, but never in like real life. Like, and then there's that sense of becoming vulnerable of like, I I am a novice, and I mean this in all sincerest respect. I've never met anybody like you before, dressed like you before. And I feel like I should know at this point in my life who you are or what you represent, but may I ask what I don't even know how to ask the question. And so they were I mean, they look like they were like Alexander's age. Um, and so um, they said that they were merchant marines. And I said no. And then I got to ask my questions like, how did that come about? Like, what does that mean? Um, and so they were kind to give me a few minutes. And I thanked them. I also informed them. I grew up on Long Island. I went to one high school in Suffolk, one in Nassau, one in Queens. Never, ever did they even present that a merchant marine was an option for growing up. I was like, at what point did you find out? They said they had a family member. I'm like, right, okay, well, that doesn't help for my purpose. Um, so I was like, I'm a mother of 4 boys. I was like, and I don't know how to pass wisdom along to them for things that I wasn't even answered or offered. So this becomes incredibly difficult. Um, and I said as much, because again, I don't know where the message will hit its mark and get back to the gods that be somewhere else in the God of things based on whatever I was tasked with. In the great wide world of possibilities. So, interestingly enough, in one of the hymnals, they mentioned this. It almost seemed like a fight with Zion. And I was like, oh, that's frightening. And of course, now I'm sitting trying to be engaged in the verbal blessings that they're and teachings that they're going through and trying to be there experientially and to stay zoned in and honed in on being present and fully experiencing the one invitation that they extended to me, although they did extend to me another one, which I thank them for that fully. But being there in that moment, and then at the Sunday school part, because it almost seemed like they were kind of in battle of some sort. And I'm like, what does that mean? I'm like, I'm going to have to ask after to one of the elders or I mean, I'll use the word elders in like the wiser of the, because I really know I don't know everything. I know, in fact, I don't know a lot. So then when I went into the adult Sunday school portion, they had a television, they had a leader, a teacher, and then they had this television, and they did this almost like little mini piece, like a visual art tool, a utility. I've seen them use it in college. They've used it in one of the high schools I was in. And so, and there they use this word presidents of the church, and they also use the or presidents and prophets, um, but prophet spelled differently than capitalistic prophet, just because by sound, it sounds the same, and there's a thread of reality, but for which I think there's cautious optimism. So there's this. So then they mention as the president speaking upon Zion differently than the hymnal was speaking upon it. And so then I'm thinking to myself, is this four-letter Keop word, Zion? I mean, of course, my mind goes to like the international, like the EO at like AM, FM, PM. Um, and then I'm thinking if you have two lines, and then you have a cross hash to bring the two lines together, then again, is it like true north just pointed in a different direction? I'd have to look for the triangle for like which, I mean, like, again, who wants to get like that specific on how to read symbology? But, and then it's the ION, which I don't know what that means in modern whatever, because again, today was the first day I ever met a merchant marine, or at least one that dressed accordingly and said as much and was helpful in how they how they became such. Or I mean, and I'm like, is anybody allowed to become? I mean, I don't know. So so there's that. um so then I asked several different persons what Zion meant. I was like, is it a good thing to this Latter-day Saints and Jesus Christ and the more structure that you have? Because I go to this place called Zion. I didn't realize it was a hot button word. And then I see the FBI is putting up something. And then there's like this synagogue reference. And I don't know what that's about. And I'm like, and that frightens me. I was like, and then there's like a warning about it. So I'm like, I'm really lost and I'm trying to find answers. I was like, so they were very kind. The Sunday school teacher said that it was not only literal but figurative in its usage. Um, and we went through a whole conversation. And then she said I should speak to something called a missionary, which I didn't know what that was. But then it turned out it was the two people that I had already spoken with who were very enlightening and helpful. I just didn't know that that was the proper term for it. Um, and so I'm just one, I guess, weekend further into finding some answers, although I feel like the more answers I find, the more questions that I have, but I guess that's just part of this whatever. Um, so that's where I'm at this weekend. It's the 24th Sunday after Pentecost. I want to go for a run. That's like really where my head is at. I had to take a few days off because I wasn't feeling well. And I'm thinking to myself, it's really cold out. And I don't want to make myself relapse into not feeling well again. And I don't know if I'm really fully capable of a run. But I really want to go for a run. But I don't know. I'm having problems feeling my myocardial like pulse. So I'm like, I don't know if that's the signs of something more serious that might be in the beginning stages of failure, or if I should really just pull myself together and go and soldier through it. I mean, it's my head not wanting to wrap around the fact that my body just might not be in peak optimal. I mean, I can see by my lips that my circulation is having problems at the moment. But that's just living around here with whatever's going on. And that brings me back to something else I was thinking of privately, which I didn't speak to anybody about. If I think on like the construct of the vernacular that this theoretical dragnet TV program that was on, where they have like a department of airports, I'm like, who oversees the department of airports if they're buying chemical or gasoline products? But usually, doesn't fuel come in on big tankers? That would be DOT, technically. But I don't even know how that really works as far as fuel cells and transporting and so on and so forth. And that just goes back to false flags and who's on these grounds and operating in some format and who's watching and controlling and regulating. I mean, there's a lot of flags that I don't even recognize that fly in front of this UN building in Manhattan. And I mean, I'm only watching like the one I know for sure that looks like this, and then the 9 or then the 8 underneath it in this one spot of Americana Manhasset, and I'm realizing just how many flags there are and just how many I am totally unaware of. I get the same sense when I walk into my son's school. And in the vestibule, they have all of these mini flags about this big. They're plastic on some kind of like decorative whatever. And I have no idea where any of those flags come from. And then all of the exponential whatevers that could go wrong. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, solar system, Milky Way universe, galaxy is broken. You know what else just doesn't sit with me right? There's something called a bishop, Michael Curry, who they're saying in the missal or the bulletin is with this particular Zion Episcopal Church, although he does not, even though somebody gave him some bishop's seat, he's not the original founders of the church. And the original founders of the church are technically, I found out, African. But yet his last name's Curry, which is a combination trade spice, and that is not indigenous Africa. It's indigenous India. So that really confuses me, how you can have a, even for namesake only, industrious spice blend of India running a founder's church of Africa trade route. It seems like one of many plot holes in the local area for which just doesn't sit right with me in some semblance of why, like, I mean, why does nothing seem to add up into like a geometric equation that logically makes sense? And who do you tell these kind of things to? Like, who collects this kind of information? Who acts upon this information? Who keeps us safe, like, really? It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza.